Travis Langley didn't have time to think twice when the woman in the sleek white coat rushed up to him at the bus stop and asked, breathlessly, "Can I borrow your phone?" "Mine just died and it's urgent." He looked down at his son, Blake, who was wrapped in a too-thin hoodie and holding onto Travis's hand like it was his lifeline. Travis glanced back at the woman. Her cheeks were flushed, her chest rising and falling fast, eyes wide and anxious. She didn't look dangerous, just desperate. "Yeah," Travis said, fishing into his jeans pocket. "Sure. Here." She took the phone like it was oxygen, muttered a thank you, and turned away slightly, punching in numbers fast with perfectly manicured fingers. Blake tugged on Travis's sleeve. "Dad, is she okay?" "I think so, bud," he replied quietly, eyes still on her. "She's just in a hurry." The woman's voice was low but urgent as she spoke into the phone. "Yes, I need the car to come to the corner of 5th and Maple. Now." "No, I don't care if the street's backed up. Tell him to take the service route. I'll wait here." She ended the call, turned back, and held out the phone. "Thank you. Seriously, you saved me." "No problem," Travis said, taking it back. "You okay?" She blinked like she wasn't expecting that question. "Yeah, just bad timing. I was walking to meet someone, didn't realize my battery was at 1%. Dumb, right?" Travis shrugged. "Happens to the best of us." She looked down at Blake. "Hey there," she said gently. "What's your name?" "Blake," he said shyly. "That's a strong name," she said with a warm smile. Travis was about to thank her again when a sleek black town car rolled up to the curb behind them. The driver jumped out and opened the door. "Miss Presley." She gave a small nod, then turned back to Travis. "Thanks again, I owe you one," he laughed a little. "Nah, you don't, just glad I could help." She hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a card. "In case you ever need something." "Seriously?" Before Travis could say no, she pressed it into his hand, walked to the car, and disappeared behind the tinted windows. Blake looked up at him. "She was pretty," Travis chuckled. "She was, huh?" He looked down at the business card, Elara Presley, CEO Presley Interiors. He frowned. The name sounded familiar, but he didn't have time to dwell on it. The bus was pulling up, and they were already running late for Blake's doctor's appointment. 2 days later, Travis was finishing a drywall job in a half-renovated kitchen in Queens when his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. "Hello, is this Travis Langley?" "Yeah, this is Elara Presley." He froze, paintbrush in hand. "Oh, hey, I hope this isn't weird. I couldn't stop thinking about how kind you were. I'd really like to thank you properly." He wiped his hands on his jeans. "You don't need to do that. I want to. You helped me when you didn't have to. Would you and Blake be free for dinner tomorrow?" He hesitated. "I don't know if we're your kind of dinner guests." She laughed on the other end, and it was warm, not condescending. "My kind is people who are decent. That's you. Let me treat you." Travis glanced at the cracked ceiling above him and then at the half-finished invoice in his bag. "All right." "Sure." He didn't own a suit, so he didn't try. He wore his cleanest button down and made sure Blake's hair was combed. When they arrived at the restaurant someplace in Midtown with a name he couldn't pronounce, a valet came to take his truck, and Elara was already waiting inside. She stood when she saw them, wearing a simple black dress and a smile that made Travis's chest feel tight. "Hey," she said. "Blake, you look sharp." Blake grinned. "Thank you." They were ushered to a corner table with a view of the glittering skyline. Elara ordered wine, then leaned forward. "So, you're a contractor?" "Yeah," Travis said. "Mostly repair work, renovations, patch jobs, whatever pays." "And Blake's mom?" she asked gently. "Left when he was 3. Haven't heard from her in years." Her eyes softened. "That's hard," he nodded. "We managed." Dinner was better than expected. Blake loved the fancy mac and cheese, and Elara didn't look down on Travis once. She asked about his work, listened when he talked about raising Blake, and told him stories about growing up in a tiny apartment in Brooklyn before her mom's interior design business took off. "So you weren't always rich," he teased. She smiled. "Not even close. We had cockroaches and duct-taped windows." He laughed. "Sounds familiar." By the time dessert came, Blake was dozing off against Travis's shoulder. Elara looked at them quietly for a moment. "You're a good dad," she said softly. "Thanks," Travis murmured. "I try." When they stood to leave, she slipped something into his pocket. "Just in case," she said. He pulled it out when they got home. A check, $5,000. He stared at it like it might bite him. The next morning, he drove to her office, an entire floor of a glass building, and asked for her. When she appeared, he held out the check. "I can't take this." She looked at him for a moment. "It's not charity." "Then what is it?" "It's me wanting to help someone who helped me, and maybe wanting an excuse to see you again." He blinked. "You don't need to take the money," she added, "but I'd still like to see you again." He didn't know what to say. No one ever said things like that to him, especially not women like her, but when she smiled, something in him cracked open. "Okay," he said. "Yeah, I'd like that too." The second time Elara showed up at Travis's place, it was raining so hard the gutters screamed. He opened the front door with a wrench still in his hand, his T-shirt damp from sweat and the leaky pipe under the sink. Elara didn't flinch at the mess. She stood on his porch without an umbrella, water sliding down the shoulders of her coat, her eyes fixed on his like she wasn't sure if he'd slam the door or invite her in. "You're soaked," he said. "I didn't plan this," she replied. "I was in the neighborhood, sort of." He stepped aside. "You're lucky Blake's at a birthday party, or you'd be wearing a crown made of Legos by now." She walked in, dripping on the worn welcome mat. "That sounds like a hazard. Only if you step on one." He handed her a towel. She dried her hair in silence while he went back to tightening the valve under the kitchen sink. "You really do all this yourself?" she asked, watching him crouch low to reach the pipe. No budget for plumbers, or leaky ceilings, or half the things in this house, honestly. "Then why stay?" He didn't look up. "Because Blake doesn't care about holes in the drywall. He cares about the pirate ship mural in his room. He helped paint it." She leaned against the counter. "You surprise me. You mean I don't fit whatever box you put me in?" "I didn't put you in a box," she said. "I just haven't met many people who'd turn down a check that size." "I didn't turn it down," he said, standing and wiping his hands. "I returned it. Big difference." She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because if I had taken it, I'd never know if you were spending time with me because you wanted to, or because you felt guilty." "I don't feel guilty," she said. "I feel interested." He tossed the towel over the back of a chair. "That's worse." Elara laughed. "You're impossible." He raised an eyebrow. "You came here in a storm to tell me that." "No," she said, straightening. "I came because I'm tired of being around people who only tell me what I want to hear. Do you know how rare it is to meet someone who looks at you like you're human and not a walking investment?" He crossed his arms. "You're not exactly low profile. I've dated senators, Travis, CEOs, heirs. You know what they all had in common? None of them knew what to do when something broke. They just called someone. You don't flinch when things fall apart. You fix them." He looked away. "I don't think you came here to talk about pipes." "You're right," she said. "I want to take you somewhere." He shook his head. "You just said it's pouring." She stepped closer. "Then we'll get wet." He stared at her. Her hair was damp, her eyes steady, and he couldn't remember the last time someone looked at him like they hadn't already decided who he was. "Give me 10 minutes, he said. They drove in silence, her driver watching them through the rearview mirror without comment. Elara didn't say where they were going, and Travis didn't ask. When the car pulled up to a tall building near the East River, she grabbed his hand before he could step out. "You trust me?" "No," he said. "But I'm here." The elevator opened into a space larger than any apartment he'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, and the rain made the city look like it was underwater. There were sculptures in corners, books on glass tables, and a grand piano that probably cost more than his truck. Travis stood in the center of the room, soaked shoes squeaking against the polished floor. "You live here." "Sometimes," she said. He turned slowly. "This isn't a place." "It's a museum. It's mine," she said. "And I hate it." He blinked. "Then why keep it?" "Because I was told I'd need it, for business dinners. For entertaining people who care about square footage and wine cellars, but I'd trade all of it to hear Blake talk about pirates." He folded his arms. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to understand what you're walking into, if this goes anywhere. If we keep doing this, you're going to see things that don't make sense. You'll hear rumors. You'll meet people who think I belong to them. I want you to see it all now, so you can walk away before it gets complicated." He stepped toward her, slow and deliberate. "It's already complicated, I know. And I'm not scared of complicated," he said. "I'm scared of fake. I've had enough of that." Her voice was barely a whisper. "So have I." He reached up and brushed rain from her cheek. Then don't lie to me, not once, not ever, I won't. The elevator dinged behind them, breaking the moment. A man stepped out, talking on a phone. He froze when he saw them. Elara, she straightened. Andrew. Travis's jaw tensed as Andrew looked him up and down. Didn't realize you were entertaining tonight. I wasn't, she said coolly. What are you doing here? I left my cufflinks in the study. Thought I'd grab them before flying out. He glanced at Travis again. Friend of yours? Elara didn't blink. More than that. Travis didn't say a word, but something in his chest tightened when Andrew finally left. Elara turned to him. I didn't expect him. Old boyfriend, old mistake. He nodded once, jaw still tight. Next time, give me a heads up before dropping me into a world that thinks I'm the help. Her face fell. That's not how I see you. I know, he said, but I need to figure out if I can survive being seen like that by everyone else. She stepped forward. I don't want you to survive it. I want you to change it. He looked at her carefully. That's a tall order. She reached for his hand. So was dinner with me, but you came anyway. He didn't pull away. Yeah, I did. And this time, when she leaned in, he let her kiss him. Blake's sneakers thudded against the pavement as he raced ahead of Travis, laughing, arms spread like wings. The early autumn air was sharp with the scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor, and the trees in the park had turned into a canopy of gold and rust. Travis kept pace behind him, his toolbox bumping against his leg, his phone buzzing in his pocket for the third time that morning. Dad, did you see that squirrel? He had a whole donut. I saw, Travis called out, grinning. World's luckiest squirrel. Blake ran back, breathless. Can we come here again tomorrow? We'll see. Depends on whether I get this repair job locked in. The phone buzzed again. Elara, Blake asked, curious. Yeah, Travis said, pulling it out. She's been trying to set up something for this weekend. You should say yes. Travis looked down at him. You think so? You smile when you talk about her. He ruffled Blake's hair. All right, nosy. He answered the call. Hey, Elara said. I know this is short notice, but I'm hosting a benefit tonight. Art Institute fundraiser. It's black tie, but I can have something sent over for you, if you're up for it. I don't have anyone to stay with Blake. There's a licensed on-site childcare program at the venue. I already checked. It's supervised, certified, and they'll be watching movies and eating pizza in their own wing. He'll be close. Travis took a breath. You sure you want me there? I wouldn't have asked if I didn't. The car arrived an hour later. Travis didn't let himself ask how she'd gotten a fitted tux delivered to his house in under 40 minutes. Blake was all wide eyes and excitement at the sight of the sleek SUV. Do we get to ride in that? We do, Travis said, adjusting his collar. Just don't spill anything. The venue was a historic museum turned gala hall, its marble steps glowing under strung lights and photographers stationed at the base. Travis instinctively reached for Blake's hand, shielding him from the flashes as they made their way inside. Elara met them in the lobby, her hair swept up, a deep blue gown catching the chandelier light like water. She bent down instinctively to greet Blake, her voice warm. You look like a secret agent. I feel like James Bond, Blake said. Travis watched the way she smiled at his son, not out of obligation or effect, but with genuine ease. She rose to meet his eyes, her voice lowering. You clean up dangerously well. You don't look too bad yourself, he said, trying not to let his nerves show. She led them through the grand atrium, where a staff member gently guided Blake toward the childcare area. Travis hesitated, but Blake waved him off with a grin. I'm good, Dad. Go be fancy. Inside the main hall, music floated through the air, soft jazz carried by a live quartet in the corner. Waiters in white jackets passed silver trays of champagne flutes. Travis kept his hands in his pockets, not trusting himself not to knock something over. Elara touched his arm. Come with me. I want to introduce you to someone. Can't promise I'll know what to say. That's what I like about you. She led him to a small group near a sculpture installation. One of the men turned, a tall figure with silver hair and a sharp suit. His face lit up in recognition. This must be the man who refused the money. Travis blinked. Excuse me, Elara narrowed her eyes. Douglas. I meant it as a compliment, the man said, extending a hand. Douglas Madigan, I'm on the board. Travis shook it warily. You're the one who runs the Community Preservation Project in Queens, aren't you? Douglas asked. I help out when I can. You've got a good eye for structure. Elara showed us some of the sketches you did for that rec center redesign. She what? Elara stepped in. You left them in the folder you gave me when you helped at my mother's place last week. I thought they were impressive. Travis looked between them. You showed my work to these people. I didn't think you'd mind. I didn't know you were doing it. The mood shifted slightly, but Elara held his gaze. I wasn't trying to undermine you. I wanted people to see what you're capable of. He didn't answer right away. Across the room, a woman laughed too loudly, and the sound echoed off the marble. Douglas cleared his throat. If you're ever looking for funding, Travis, give me a call. We could use someone who understands both sides of the blueprint. After he walked away, Travis turned to her. You didn't think maybe I should be the one to decide when and how to show my work. I was trying to help. I didn't ask for help. Her jaw tightened. You're right. I got ahead of myself. He looked around the room, so many polished people with perfect teeth and practiced smiles. He felt like someone had handed him a script in a language he didn't speak. I'm not used to this, he said quietly, having someone push me into things. I wasn't pushing, she said. I was lifting, he exhaled. There's a difference? Yeah, she said. One's about control. The other's about belief. He looked at her, really looked at her. The way she stood there, shoulders back, not apologizing, not retreating. She wasn't trying to mold him into someone else. She was trying to show him a version of himself he'd stopped believing in. You believe in me. Yes, she said. Even when you don't. He let out a breath, the tension in his chest easing just a little. All right. You get one more shot at unsolicited belief. After that, I start charging. She finally let herself laugh. Deal? Later that evening, as the gala drew to a close, Travis found Blake curled up in a beanbag in the childcare lounge, half asleep with a juice box in his hand. Did you have fun? Travis whispered. Yeah, Blake murmured. One kid said his mom owns a helicopter. But I told him my dad built a treehouse and that's cooler. Travis smiled, lifting him into his arms. You're not wrong. As they stepped back into the cool night, Elara joined them, her heels clicking softly against the stone. You two staying the night in the city? She asked. Haven't decided yet. I have a place nearby, she said, voice careful. 2 bedrooms, quiet, you'd be comfortable. Travis looked down at Blake, who was already drifting off against his shoulder. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. Travis had never seen a rooftop like this before, let alone stood barefoot on one, holding a mug of coffee while the skyline blinked around him in the early morning light. The apartment Elara had let them stay in overnight was quiet now, with Blake curled up on a pull-out couch in the guest room, a blanket tucked under his chin and a stuffed dinosaur resting on his chest. I figured you'd be up early, Elara said behind him, her voice still husky with sleep. I'm used to starting before the sun, he said, not turning around. Too many years of scraping together shifts, mornings became routine. She walked to the edge of the terrace and leaned against the railing. The breeze lifted strands of her hair as she stared out at the river. Do you ever think about what you'd do if time and money weren't things you had to worry about? She asked. I used to, he said. Before Blake, then all my thoughts became about him, making rent, keeping the heat on, school uniforms. I stopped imagining. She looked over. Maybe it's time to start again. Travis met her eyes. And what would I imagine? A life where I belong in places like this? No, she said. A life where you don't have to ask yourself that question. He didn't answer. The quiet between them wasn't uncomfortable, just heavy with something unspoken. Elara, he said finally, what happens after this? She turned to face him completely. What do you mean, this thing between us? It's real, I know it is, but I can't shake the feeling that your world has a way of pushing out people who don't fit neatly into it. She took a step closer. You think I care about neat? I think you've built a life out of control, he said, and I don't come with a plan. I don't come with polish. I don't want polish, she said. I want real, and you're the only man who's ever made me feel like myself when everything else is stripped away. He looked down at the steam rising off his coffee. That's not always a good thing. Yes, it is, she said. Because I've spent years being exactly what I was expected to be, perfect daughter, flawless CEO, untouchable. And then you handed me a phone without asking who I was, and I remembered what it felt like to be seen, not analyzed. He laughed once under his breath. You fell for a guy who can't afford to fix his own roof. I fell for a guy who didn't flinch when I showed him the worst side of the world I live in, she said. Who didn't run when old ghosts cornered us at a gala. Who stood next to me without needing to be the loudest person in the room. He set the mug down on the ledge. I don't know how to make this work. Then let's figure it out together. Before he could respond, the glass door opened behind them. Blake stepped onto the terrace, rubbing his eyes and yawning. Are we having pancakes? Travis turned. If Elara has pancake mix. I have a chef who's already making some, she said, kneeling down to his level. Blueberry okay, Blake grinned. Best day ever. Later that afternoon, they drove out to the neighborhood where Travis had grown up. Elara had asked to see it, to understand more of where he came from. He pointed out the corner store that used to sell expired candy for pennies, the basketball court, where he'd broken his wrist in 8th grade, the apartment building where he and his mother had lived before she passed. You ever think about moving back? She asked as they walked down the cracked sidewalk. I think about what I'd do if I could afford to fix it, he said. This whole block's falling apart, but there's still good people here. Families who work 2 jobs and still make time to help their neighbors shovel snow. She nodded slowly. What if you didn't have to choose between fixing things and feeding your kid? He stopped walking. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to back you, she said. Not just emotionally. Financially. I want to invest in whatever you build, whether it's a community center, a housing rehab project, your own damn company. I believe in it, and I believe in you. He shook his head. You can't just fund my life. I don't want to fund it, she said. I want to build it with you. He stared at her, the words getting caught somewhere beneath his ribs. I'm not used to being offered things without strings, he said. Then I'll cut every string, she said. I don't want to own you. I want to stand beside you. A week later, Travis found himself standing in front of a gutted storefront with a "for lease" sign in the window and a ring box in his pocket. Elara had no idea. She arrived an hour later, fresh from a board meeting, her heels clicking against the pavement. What is this place? She asked, looking around at the dusty windows and peeling paint. This, he said, is the future headquarters of Langley Restoration. If you still want to invest, she blinked. You're serious? I want to rebuild homes for people who have been told they can't afford to stay in their own neighborhoods. I want to hire local. Teach kids who have never held a hammer how to build something that lasts. I want to do it my way, her voice caught. You're really doing this. And I want you here for all of it, he said. Then he pulled the ring box from his pocket and opened it. She froze. I don't have a yacht, he said, or a penthouse that makes headlines, but I've got a son who thinks the world of you. I've got a heart that doesn't know how to be anything but honest, and I've got a question. She stepped closer, her hand covering her mouth. Elara Presley, will you marry me? She didn't speak. She just nodded, eyes shining, and threw her arms around him. Blake's voice called from the car window. Is that a yes? Elara laughed through her tears. That's a yes. 3 months later, they stood under a canopy of lights in the very same neighborhood Travis had grown up in, surrounded by neighbors, friends, and the team they'd built together. Elara wore a simple gown, her hair pinned back with gardenias. Travis wore a suit that actually fit this time, Blake standing proud between them in a tie he kept tugging at. As they exchanged vows in the middle of the street they were already working to rebuild, Elara looked at the man who had given her more than a new life. He'd given her something no amount of money could ever buy, a home. The scent of sawdust lingered in the air as Travis stepped into the nearly finished space. The Langley Restoration Office, once hollow and echoing with decay, now hummed with purpose freshly painted walls, the soft creak of new floors, and the hum of computers being set up by local teens he'd trained himself. He adjusted the framed photo in the front hallway, Blake in a hard hat, Elara laughing behind him, both dust-covered and beaming. He ran a hand over the wood grain of the reception desk built from reclaimed floorboards salvaged from the old gym down the block. Did you ever think this would actually get done? Elara asked from the doorway, slipping her heels off as she stepped inside. I figured I'd die before I saw a working HVAC system in this place, he said, not even trying to hide his grin. She walked in, barefoot across the new floor, her dress brushing her ankles. The new team you brought on there already booked for 3 months straight. I know. I keep thinking someone's gonna realize I'm just a guy with calluses and a stubborn streak. You're a guy who gave this neighborhood a reason to believe again, she said, her voice softer now. You didn't just fix buildings, you repaired trust. He leaned against the desk. You still okay with being married to a man whose idea of a romantic evening is talking about insulation and zoning permits? She walked over and looped her arms around his neck. Are you kidding? You made blueprints sound like poetry. I've never been more in love. He kissed the top of her head. You should probably sit down before you see the invoice for the lobby mural. Already approved and paid, she said. I snuck it through yesterday. He raised an eyebrow. I'm your wife, she added. I know where the budget skeletons are buried. Before he could answer, the front door opened with a burst of wind and the unmistakable thump of Blake's backpack hitting the floor. Dad, Elara. Guess what? Travis turned just in time to catch a paper in his son's hands. What's this? My essay one, Blake said, bouncing on the balls of his feet. They picked me to read it at the school board meeting. Elara crouched down beside him. What did you write about? Blake beamed. I wrote about how my dad taught me that building stuff is more than just wood and nails. It's about making people feel safe, and I wrote about you too, she blinked. Me? Yeah, I said you taught me that just cause something looks fancy doesn't mean it's better, and that it's okay to be both strong and kind. Travis swallowed hard. They picked you for that. Yep, mister. Rinaldi said I should be a journalist when I grow up. You'd be a great one, Elara said, but only if you still help us pick paint colors on the weekends. Blake looked thoughtful. I charge extra for glitter paint now, Travis laughed. We'll renegotiate your rate. That night, they sat together on the rooftop of their new home, a brownstone not far from the office, one that Travis had gutted and rebuilt from the inside out. It had taken months, but every shingle, every tile had been chosen together. A home built not just with hands, but with love. Elara curled into his side, barefoot again, a glass of white wine in her hand. Blake was inside, finishing the last chapter of a mystery novel before bed. The city buzzed in the distance, but up here, it was quiet. I talked to my board yesterday, Elara said. He turned to her. What happened? I stepped down. He sat up straighter. What, are you serious? She nodded. I've done what I needed to do there. Presley Interiors is strong and my mother's legacy is secure. But you and I were building something new now. I want to be present for it. He was silent for a long moment. You gave up a lot. I traded up, she said. You think I want to spend another decade choosing drapery for people who don't look each other in the eye at dinner? I want to build homes with you. I want to raise Blake with you. I want late-night takeout and budget meetings and community potlucks. I want this life. He kissed her then slow, sure, like a promise sealed in the dark. I never thought I'd have this, he whispered. Not in a million years. Well, she said, smiling against his shoulder, you've got it. Forever. Under the stars, they made plans for the next project. A shelter conversion on the east side, a mentorship program for kids who wanted to learn the trades, and a scholarship fund in Elara's mother's name. Each idea sparked something new between them, a shared purpose that felt more intimate than any candlelit dinner. And when Blake joined them a few minutes later, curling up between them with his blanket and a sleepy smile, Travis wrapped his arms around them both. For the first time in his life, the future didn't feel like something he had to brace himself for. It felt like something he was racing toward, hand in hand with the woman he loved, with the son who'd taught him how to dream again. And this time, he wasn't running alone. They stayed on the rooftop until the city lights blurred into stars and the world below faded into quiet together. Always.